Have you ever thought about using a self-directed IRA to invest in property? I know this is a topic and a question I get all the time. How do you do it? Is it worth it? What are the headaches? All of that. In order to have this conversation, I thought we should talk with the CEO of Hemlane and Dana Dunford. How you doing, Dana?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you and I were talking off air. You indicated that you actually have an IRA that you have not looked at in a while, and you were like, "Hey, yeah, should I do some real estate investing with this?" Is that kind of a fair summary?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a fair summary. And I also think it comes down to the your work
Mhm.
that you guys have as one of the values with one rental at a time is you sit there and you say, it's super easy through my company to go online and press some allocation buttons, whether it's in Charles Schwab or whatever account you're using for your 401k, which then you put into your IRA when you leave the company. And with that, the real question comes down to, is that working for you? And are you able to control that? And could you make more money elsewhere?
Right.
And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, Michael, because I think there's probably a lot of people out there who say, I don't have time. I'm to do the work. It's a little bit confusing how I have to structure it. And so really thinking about that as a way to say, hey, I need capital to purchase a rental. Should I be using my IRA to go ahead and do that? So would love kind of your feedback and opinion of what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, so I want to like I'm always clear with my audience. I've actually never done this. I have chosen person. This is not financial advice. This is just what I did. So every time I left a company during my real estate journey, I cashed out my 401k, paid the penalty, never thought twice about it. I've said on record that something I should have considered. Now, hindsight, I should have looked at a self-directed IRA. Um, at the time, I was young and dumb. I took the tax and did what I did. It worked out. Some of that was luck. Having done this now for a while, there's lots of people that do use their self-directed IRA, whether they're doing lending or whatever they're doing. I will say um, there are rules around how you interact with the property in a self-directed IRA. And it has to be self-funding. And there's all of these extra things which add some hair to the situation. And one of the things that I think we're going to have this conversation, I think Hemlane removes some of that risk because, again, as an operator or the owner, you can't interact with the property.
Mhm.
You can't fund it, right? You got a big expense if the money's. I mean, there's just lots of rules in a self-directed IRA for owning long-term rental properties. But maybe Hemlane kind of facilitates that because you can create a barrier. One of the things you have to do is there has to be clear separation. So I think Hemlane might help with that, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, so we've spoken with the Rocket Dollar team that's focused on self-directed IRAs to go through it. And there's a couple of different areas with it where there's a clear distinction. You will have a penalty if you do any of this property management. One of them is commingling revenue and expenses. It's sort of like you do it with your business, where you go ahead and you accidentally pay from your personal bank account for something, or the rent goes into your personal bank account and then you go ahead and put it into the custodian account. No, 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 you can't do
No,
that.
no, 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 no.
And so Hemlane will help solve that because you will have a specific bank account for that property in Hemlane. That's your custodian account where you can obviously have the rent collection, any revenue go into and then out of. So that's the first thing that's important to distinguish is you really need that clear distinction and making sure that you're setting it up like any business and operating it that way. The second thing that's super important is repairs and any sort of maintenance, any development. There are folks who say, hey, I'm going to go over to the property and install a light fixture myself, or I'm going to go over and make sure it's move-in ready. You can't do any of that. You do need a third party to do all of that. And that third party, there's like a triage there of who it can be. Like, can't be your mom, it can't be your dad.
Yep.
It has to be truly a third party where you can say, this is a professional who I've hired. And so in the case of Hemlane, we're able to do that. One, we have our repair coordination to do the repair coordination with the tenants. But two, then we also have the third-party service professionals, whether it's a plumber, electrician. These are folks who are not not tied to you, and you can use those third-party professionals. And so we've had folks who have built up through time and time again of working hard at their companies, built up their 401ks. They've pushed it over into an IRA account and then to a self-directed. And they say, hey, I have this cash and capital. Let me go invest it in real estate. And so it's a fantastic way to think about it and do it. And so I would encourage those out there who say, I have some money. I'm not sure if I should get into the market now. Interest rates are higher, this and that. It's like, do the math. Just go look at properties every day, see what you can get. Look at your buy box. Does it fit in your buy box? And then once it does, and you see something that fits in your buy box, the next thing to do is say, okay, now what type of capital should I use for it? Should I consider this self-directed IRA? So that is something that I think is definitely a topic that isn't spoken about enough. And it is interesting because I do think it's getting easier with technology for you to educate yourself on it. And then two, also think about that as an alternative, especially in this environment.
I think there's a couple of things there. What was the company that you Rocket something? Who are they?
Rocketdollar.com.
Rocket Dollar. Okay.
They help with the self-directed, and they're a tech platform that does it. There's obviously multiple that you can go through to self-direct. But I think it's really cool because they do a lot of education on it and how to put it into real estate. And then also educating you also on making sure you do it correctly when you create the custodian account and all of that, to cross your T's and dot your I's, because one of the things that you don't want to do is get that penalty later on associated with it. And so as much as you can make sure you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's, you'll be good. But then again, it's like, pre-tax dollars working for you. And there's a lot of advantages to that.
Yeah. So again, I always clear with my audience. I've never done this, have no experience in this. Go ahead and check out rocketdollar.com, see what they have. Sounds like they have a lot of education and discussion. I do want to highlight that if you were going to do this as a long-term buy and hold investor, you need to really create that separation. You don't want to have the penalty come up, whether it's income or expense management. The other thing, I've known lots of people to buy inside their IRAs. You can get loans. The interest rate is higher. Usually, again, the last couple of years might have been different, but historically speaking, the most that is traditional is 50%. And oh, by the way, the mortgage payment and taxes and insurance has to come out of the IRA. So you do have to have a nice reserve account left after purchase. But again, I am not the expert. I'm not trying to pretend to be the expert. I'm just letting you know that one of the things you have to do is have separation. And Hemlane provides that, gives the audit trail separation. You can't be mom, dad, sort of all of that stuff. So any other kind of closing thoughts, Dana?
Yeah, I think it goes back to do the work, right? I think both you and I are saying is do the work, get educated on it. Because I've always found if you do a bit more work than others, you have a lot more reward.
Exactly. It's funny how often that is the key. Just do a little bit more work than everybody else, and you look like a genius. So folks, do some research, look for that. Dana, where can people find you and maybe play with Hemlane to see how it could help them facilitate this if interested?
Yeah, you can go to Hemlane, HEMLANE.com, and try us for free if you have a rental property you want to mess around with. If you wanted to advertise it out, it's vacant. Come to Hemlane. You can try everything from leasing to management on the platform. You get 30 days free, and just mention one rental at a time for 20% off your first year.
One of the things I highly recommend is if you want to be a buy and hold landlord, even if you don't have one, you're just starting to look at your buy box, go get the platform, play with it for 30 days, see what it's like to interact with tenants, interact with repair coordinators, all of that stuff. Go get experience, do the work, stand out from the crowd. Dana, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.